Welcome to a revamped studio here at Lightspeed Investing. We've got Paul H. Graham visiting us today. He is a serial entrepreneur and an alternative investor based in Texas. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I mean, all days are great days. We just learn different things each day.
Awesome, man. Great to have you here. And I'm
Yeah.
excited to share with the audience some things about your personal journey, right? Notably speaking, I think you got a good start with the original Shark Tank, Kevin Harrington. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So, kind of if you're watching on, video, you can see how, I have a co-authored book with Kevin Harrington. He's the original shark from Shark Tank. It's just said in some ways that, and we'll go through some of this, but the first kind of major part of my life, call it the past like 25 some odd years, right, have been very like success outcome based. Hey, if I put this much in, what will I get out of, and kind of transactional. And then really the last, couple and sort of beyond have really been transformational. So said another way, like I didn't plan to co-author a book with Kevin yet. I found him at a family office event, talked to his co-CEO, got to know him, all these things, got an opportunity to have a conversation that then went down a path where I then wrote a book with him, right? And so the most magical, wonderful, incredible experiences of my life have been unexpected. And so really leaning into that, both from like a living life standpoint, as well as even investing, right, in business too. So that's been a really cool thing that's happened. I mean, shoot, even my parents got to come out for the book signing and got to meet him. They're pretty much the same age as him. So it was kind of a cool, full circle sort of moment because my mom and I used to watch Shark Tank growing up. Again, didn't plan this, but how amazing it that it happened.
And what was the thing that you were doing prior to meeting him at that family office? I mean, why did you even want to go?
Yeah, so I mean, I was at a family office conference that was where I was raising capital for oil and gas. That's been the main thing that I focused on in terms of capital raising. I have some experience in commercial real estate or debt funds as well, but was just really learning, the lay of the land, industry, meeting other people, etc. And Kevin spoke at this family office event. Like I said, just kind of transposed from there. So.
That's awesome, man. And in your head, like, what were you trying to accomplish in terms of, it's funny, right? Sometimes you enter an event with an
Yeah.
agenda of like, here are my goals, and then you kind of come out, maybe some of it gets totally rearranged. Like similar to me, that's how I met my business partner,
Okay. Yeah.
High Caliber business event. And after meeting him, my whole trajectory and life sort of took a huge 360 turn, right? So kind of curious what that looks like for you in terms of like the before and after. Because obviously, I
Yeah.
don't think you went into that event thinking you would write a book with Kevin Harrington, right?
No, not at all. Let alone would I like get to meet him or talk to him. I mean, candidly, like after that initial interaction, like I ended up getting invited to, a private dinner with him and his team, and they were talking about, their fund in the CPG space. Afterwards, his son was like, "Hey, are you coming to the cigar place?" And I was like, "Yeah, for sure. Like, which one, right?" So we ended up going there, having cigars, talking more, things like that, stayed in contact, etc. So none of that was planned, right? Really the two big things that were planned was one, learn and consume information and understand and just be, right, kind of be in the presence. And then two was essentially serve. So two of my top skills are basically analytical, so my brain operates like a spreadsheet, but it also operates like LinkedIn, right? So when you're like, oh, hey, like I'm looking for a business partner who's, a technical co-founder that da da da, it's like, okay, well, then I would think of like Mitch, who actually I just talked to a couple days ago, that da da da, like, would you like an intro? What's the best way to do that? Things like that, right? At the time, I was doing a lot of kind of transformational coaching, more on like the personal side. Like I've done 75 hard a number of times. I've coached and trained over 200 people doing it. I'm actually doing it right now. Today's day 7, I think. And I'm really like documenting the process this time. But why that matters in terms of the personal coaching is that I was talking to Brandon T. Adams, right? So his co-CEO, and was just saying, hey, like, I don't want to talk to Kevin because normally people always go to the main source. They're like, no, I want to talk to the star. You always talk to the assistant. You always talk to the second or third in command. Always, 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 right? And so asked, hey, like I'm thinking about hosting an event, and I was in Austin at the time. What would that look like, feel like, sound like? Is that like how could this even be possible? What's worth your time, right? Like, who is your ideal client? And that's one of my favorite questions to ask just people I mean is just like, who's your ideal client, right? So that I can remember and know. And I mean, not necessarily that it's a sizing kind of tactic, but the people who are serious, no. The people that are average, don't. Oh yeah, I take business owners. Amazing. It was great meeting you, right? If I want to be the best and work with the best, then there's certain best sort of qualities and thought processes as well as like heuristics about them. And yeah, like I said, just really that conversation with Brandon just spun out to a number of things. I since moved to Nashville like a little bit ago, but the funny thing is while I was at the book like photo op experience, right? I saw Brandon again. Hey, Brandon, like good to see you again. Hey, man, what's new? And I was like, yeah, man, I think I'm gonna move to Nashville. He's like, dude, I'm in Nashville, and I was like, course you are, right? And I only say that because like there were a bunch of different intuition things of like me moving
Yeah.
to Nashville. Like 12 different things came up in different ways for me to move to Nashville. And so it was just like, okay, I think I just need to move to Nashville. And yet again, like he was one of the 12 things that it's like this was just so random. So again, amazing, wonderful, incredible things are just unexpected and really leaning into that. And I found being of service and also not being someone who knows it all really gives you the capacity to be curious, and that curious and compassionate sort of mind and heart really just gets you into rooms, places, deals, opportunities. I mean, I've been offered equity to companies that I just don't feel like I deserve, but the people I connected or the things I did, they were just like, "No, you absolutely need this." It's like, "Oh, okay." That's different than I worked so hard and I did all these things and I, got this thing and I deserve this, right? Like that's a sense from ego
Hmm.
as opposed to, from a sense again of kind of service. So,
Well, and I also think when you show up and you've done the work, like people that have continuously poured and invested in themselves first and foremost,
oh yeah.
you enter into rooms and you're able to have conversations, it shines through, right? Like
Yeah.
without you having to intentionally hold up a megaphone, right? Just from the conversation, you can tell there's some substance to it.
Yeah,
So
like you've done the deep work, you've done the thing, you get know more about yourself, your business, your just presence, things like that. A
yeah.
million percent for sure.
So obviously having met Kevin Harrington, that was like a couple years ago, right? That was like right
That was yeah, about a year and a half ago now when we
after.
officially met, and then we
Right.
finished the book later that year. So
So I guess now, obviously, that interaction must have changed you for the better, right?
yeah.
Drastically. How has that now shaped your trajectory going forward? Or some of like your projects that you're touching, still resonate from before you had met Kevin, or is it, taken a different form at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's he's definitely one of the pieces, right? In terms of his tenacity and the thought process. He talked about how he formed as seen on TV, which is just an incredible story, and he just found a need. Two people and was just like, "Hey, let's try this. Oh, you really want? Okay, that's okay, and then okay, and we'll make this beneficial for you and all this sort of stuff, right?" So it was just a silly, easy yes for TV channels, right, and networks to say yes to him because previously they weren't doing anything overnight, right? And so he was saying, "Hey, I'll use your space and I will then give you an affiliate kind of the things that are sold." So it's like I'll take what you're not using and I'll make you money for you allowing me to use it. Well, of sorts, why would you say no, right? So those type of thoughts, right? Building aggregation type businesses, finding opportunity that you can leverage, make it an easy yes, like those types of things for sure. I mean, I've truthfully been able and fortunate to meet several billionaires, as well as other family offices that are at the 100 million or even like $1 billion allocation. And really, it's just a difference in terms of, I mean, I would say kind of break them down into two things, right? So one is business. Some are just really tight knit, well run, great operation sort of things, right? They're just like world class through and through. The Cincinnati Reds, for example, like one of their thought processes and of sorts, this might be slightly butchered just from my memory of it, but just this aspect around we don't take risk because we find more information to understand if something is or is not. It's not a risk, it's a matter of like the due diligence that you do, right? And the level of rigor of your due diligence. And so like something like that's really interesting, right? It's almost like when you go into ChatGPT and you're like, give me LinkedIn posts or something, right? Well, you're just doing one sentence. Something that used to take an hour, you're taking 2 seconds to do, but really you should maybe spend 10 minutes on. My point is like you might need to put more work to make it great. Alex Hormozy even talks about this too. Like to make something great, it just takes exponentially more work
Yeah, the
to
gap
make it world
between
class.
good and excellent and great and excellent, right?
Correct.
Is
Absolutely. It
because
just
what is it that
exceeds
they
that.
say like Olympic sprinters, that like the difference between the gold medalist and the silver, right? Even though it's like
Yeah.
this much time, but on the back end, that gap of this much time is like this much work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was like Usain Bolt was just like I ran, done sprints of sorts for like 20 odd years, and the amount of time cumulative of it is like 12 minutes that he's like actually performed or something just like
Right.
crazy of sorts like that. However, it's just doing what's required. So from a business side, again, there's those sort of systems processes being world class. Even if you look at Vit, what is it? Vested. I'm trying to think of the private equity firm. Um, and again, let me think about what it was called. Regardless, there's just some like world class type of institutions that run business really silly well, right? Then you have on the
Uh,
personal side.
but you were saying there was two big categories. One was the business aspect, and then the other
Yeah,
is
so one is business, yep, and the other is basically personal, right? So, for example, I'll give a specific shout out. So, like, I've had the pleasure and honor to meet Richard Branson, right? Like, I was actually like on his island and talk and hang out with him, right? We played tennis. Our team won, go team. Um, the the biggest things that I took away from him on a personal side, right, was not just in his ingenuity or his ability to say, screw it, let's do it, and just like create 40 of sorts, different avenues and verticals within companies that are extremely high cost intensive B2C, right? Like airlines, cruise ships. Like that's not like, hey, I'm going to make a little cute little AI platform, right? Like these are massive intensive capital projects. But it was his kindness and it was curiosity. And so his ability to like just have normal conversations with individuals is very different than a couple other billionaire type of individuals that I've met. And really like want to be around him and like him and just like be supportive of him, and really almost there's a human element that he like comes with that necessarily sometimes people of wealth may not have, right? And you don't need to have $1 billion to not have this. My point is that he was really connected with his curiosity and his kindness and his compassion. I mean, he even talked about it in some of the presentations that he did, and that
sure.
is like the key difference maker of sorts of like what makes the human beyond like the business. And so, sure, you could have a great big business, but ultimately, if you're a big a-hole, frankly, no one really wants to work with you unless it's for dollars. But if you're
Right.
just like a genuine person that people actually want to be around, um,
Yeah.
and you maybe have both, who knows? But it's again just that sort of aspect of separating that kind of oil from water. That's also just been a great way to uh, have that sort of filter even from a business sense. Like you could be the most amazing thing since sliced bread, but candidly, if you're, running some a-hole tendencies, like I don't care. Like, great, sure, I can make a bunch of money, but like I have the option to choose who I do and don't work with and support and not. Now, granted, that's taken a lot of time and like even emotional healing from the finance side, because I used to be very like, oh no, they have a bunch of money, like I have to work with them or I want to be them. Like it's not what you have or who you know, it's who you are, right? And that's really been a switch, really these past couple years. Why I've started the brand, The Investor's Guide to Joy, and that intention on individuals, not just striving for what they have and who they know, but more of just like the path of joy that's along the way. And again, as I've mentioned, that me taking that joyful path, I've met more people worth a heck of a lot more, with more opportunities, with more income, with more potential than just this like hard work equals success, like I must do it myself control kind of a thing. Again, just it has just been not only, I mean, sure, that's been my experience, but like as I share that, I found that other people are like, oh, wow, I've felt the same, right? Because they're more
Well,
slow to it.
because first and foremost, what is an LLC, right? An LLC is an extension of the person. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, so having a lot of your personal affairs taken care of is important because usually speaking, if someone in business is seeing some kind of business problems,
Hmm.
it tends to also be a reflection of their personal issues, right?
Yeah,
So that's number one. And number two,
for sure.
I couldn't agree more because that's kind of what made me so surprised having gotten to know my my business partner who's a hedge fund manager because
Yeah.
he's, even though he does what he does, he's also super generous and kind, right? To
Yeah.
a degree that I just can't comprehend. Uh,
Yeah.
but that's kind of why, those additional factors make the work so fulfilling, right? And I think that's another,
Yeah.
I would say, phrase, right, that you
Yeah.
probably sensed from these individuals when you get
Hmm.
to work with them is regardless of the monetary reward, right, is how happy you feel on the inside
Hmm.
if you're
Yeah.
following the path of like doing good work, right? And
Yeah.
so obviously that's through a combination of things, you're now in Nashville and you have the desire to create the investor guide for and
Yep.
tell the audience, right, who is the best fit for this kind of guide, right? And what are you looking to accomplish with this guide?
Yeah, so it's something I'm finishing right now. So as I finish this time of 75 hard, just finishing the book. And so the Investor's Guide to Joy is basically a guide essentially of helping individuals know more about themselves and then also invest in things like people and process
Mhm.
and then also investments. But oftentimes I found myself completely go to the investments, right? Again, specifically, let's go through an example of someone in corporate America, right? They're like, hey, maybe I want to start a side company or something like that, right? They will typically burn themselves out working both their corporate job and their side gig just to make side money to eventually leave their corporate gig, right? When instead you could potentially take your income you're earning, reduce your expenses, realize that you could hire, a couple people, what have you, to do some sort of business development or work for you and really build a team around you to then offer services to other individuals and then not work a lot, but you end up pouring into other people, right? Like it's been incredible to have, team members. And granted, I've run a couple companies, like I've been in a number of different organizations and really helped scale them. My point is to say, like, I find more joy and benefit and value providing a really great service to people and building a really great team that helps to provide that as well, right? So instead of me just making, 3 to 30 grand on the month by myself, how amazing would it be to make 3 or 30 grand with like a team of people where we also get to be like, oh, hey, how is it, where you're at, right? Or, just connections or birthdays or just like other human pieces. Like humans naturally want community. And so the ability to build like the right community, I just believe is also like a company, right? But besides that, if you're a corporate employee, maybe you have your own business, obviously the same things apply. The other thing is really, again, just unexpected things happen when you really pour into people and you're kind and you're generous and you help these kind of stuff. That really is going to be more of a servant leader than necessarily someone who's just, really stick and bones sort of person, right? And so, lastly, as we then grow, not just who we are and who we can become, then we create, and we have the right people and the right processes, et cetera, et cetera. We then are going to have investments. And so, what do those investments look like? So, I've again done a number of different alternative investments. I'm talking or work with a number of different like wealth management firms. They're building alternative investment platforms because they want to help their clients with it, right? And so I work with them or advise for them or what have you. And part of that is like alternatives are typically defined as like private equity, private credit. You also have oil and gas, you have real estate, you have crypto type of things, right? Now, oftentimes things like oil and gas just gets put to like, oh, I don't know about that, things like that, right? My point is to say that like, at least for myself and the firm I'm a managing partner at, Sandstone Group or Sandstone Asset Management, really, because we work specifically in the oil and gas space, we've really found that most people don't know about oil and gas. Most people know about real estate because it's just real estate, right? However, I could either buy real estate to like offset my taxes, but then I could have headache, right? That's one path, right? Great, I make some income. I have some, offsetting taxes. Okay, cool. Another path is to invest in oil and gas. You get up to 100% of offsetting your taxes. So basically, you'd probably pay zero taxes, right? You also get cash flow and you also have diversification and it's also passive, right? There's no tenants, toilets, or termites. And so, why I say that is simply because there are different options that people have. The challenge is that in the alternative space, there's really not a lot of people who are just saying, hey, here's the whole picture of all the different ones. We could even go into data centers or solar or all these other things as well, right? But my point is to simply say that like there are different alternatives that you can look at. And so as you're growing your wealth, especially if you're above 2 million net worth, I only say that just because traditionally you have enough for discretionary income, or maybe you're making, above 200,000 and you have the ability to invest minimum of $50,000 into some of these opportunities. You have different options to grow, preserve, and steward your wealth. So that's really my intention with the Investor's Guide to Joy, is to help build people so that in such a way that they themselves become better as individuals, but also get to grow, preserve, and steward their wealth, as opposed to creating more a-holes, right? Like I can write a very tactical book on at least how I've grown my wealth through doubling my W2 income in 4 years. I septupled, so 7 times my net worth in 18 months, right? And that was mainly through real estate. That wasn't even like a Bitcoin thing. Um, and so like I can write that, but like what type of people would that create, right? So my intention is to share not just my story, but also the perspective of people who are, you know, 8 figure, 9 figure type of individuals, right? Even the tens, that then it's just realizing like, hey, you're not actually chasing money. You're really maybe chasing like status or being known or being seen or really have a community or being, generous or having a purpose or a cause. Those things could also be true, but it may not have to be, oh, I have to have $100 million company, right? So it's just really reframing different things that people might have, and giving them a guide on how to do that. Not just sharing my story or other people's stories, but really getting tactical of like, okay, how do you get to know yourself more? Okay, you do these sort of things, right? I have some
Sure.
action sheets as well. For example, like creating your 3 year vision or doing a solo weekend, like all these sort of things. And really, kind of like we talked about earlier, right? The people who have really invested in themselves really know themselves, what they want, where they're going. Um, if there was a way to almost like crash course that's kind of the intention. I typically talk to like 8 and 9 figure business owners because of oil and gas and capital raising and whatnot. And most of them are looking for purpose, or they're looking for a partner. And I say partner because potentially it tends to be men, but potentially their wife left them because they were so focused on building the business and creating income that they didn't have time or really care about their significant other, right? And so those sort of things, it's like if we can bring some of those lessons and teachings and bring that, into a consolidated form and give you a guide to that, ultimately my belief is just you would live a better life that would then pour into other people more and would almost create a ripple effect, not just with wealth, right, in terms of dollars, but also just people. So that's the
And
intention and kind of
how do
piece.
you that's great. And how do you plan on delivering that guide? Is it more like online, on like school, or
So we'll do just formal book of sorts, right? This is more of really kind of like passion project, man. Like I've just like, for example, if I was to ask you, like, if you, know any other languages and if you're fluent in them, how would I know if you're fluent, right? Like I wouldn't really be able to tell. Said another way, if I was like, hey, do you want more joy? You'd be like, well, I probably have a lot. Like it's tough for us to compare how much joy we have in our lives or what our capacity for joy is. So instead of being like, hey, you need more of this, my approach is more like, hey, like here's what other people have found, and go down these paths. An example: spend the next week, right? So this is a challenge to everyone. Spend the next week having a meaningful conversation with a stranger, or doing a random act of kindness, one thing every single day for a week, right? And see if your life is just not radically different, right? It's going to be a little uncomfortable. It's going to be this and that, but like it's just going to be radically different. And
so
so,
is it like a physical book with actionables
yeah,
or
yes, yep. So it's yeah, physical book with actionables, and people can download the like 3 year vision and whatnot, right? That's going to be like on the website. But the intention is really just like, if you could create kind of a consolidated like business, personal life guide sort of thing, kind of do it yourself. That's what that is. And then as you're an individual who's looking to invest in alternatives, certainly like we have that, right? I also have Octane. So Octane's a group of CPAs that know alternatives, right? So as you grow into some of these areas or need someone that's more specialized, there's that piece. But yeah, really just kind of giving, a little ways sharing my story. More importantly, it's also like the idea of changing someone's life by 1 degree. right? So if you look at ships or planes, like if they veer course and change by 1 degree, they're going to end up in a vastly different destination, right? So if just somehow a paragraph or an exercise or one thought from the book just like tweaks it, I mean, that's really the goal of the book, right? Because then someone's life can just be radically different for the better. I mean, I just say that's a frickin' win in my book. So
No, big changes are created from compounded small changes.
yeah, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I love that. And what I say is obviously, for from the audience listening in, you've kind of had this trajectory, right? And now you know what you want to focus on.
Hmm.
What would your biggest advice be, right, for someone, who is trying to absorb, your compressed wisdom on entrepreneurship from all the things that you've went through? I know we talked about different
Yeah,
aspects here, but if you could hone in on like, your top couple of things, uh,
yeah,
and we can wrap it up that way because I want to save some
yeah.
time on our next conversation to really go in on the different nuances of the alternative investing. I definitely think that's interesting. So.
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing that comes to mind in the sense of like an entrepreneur of whatever you're at, right? Maybe you have a small company, maybe it's a couple hundred grand, maybe you're just hit that 7 figure mark. And there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to, target you and be like, "Hey, I can grow your company." And whether they can or not, like you got to figure that out, right? But the fundamental thing of like any problem or any opportunity can be resolved or created by talking to 100 people, right? That quick thing is really beneficial because it really gives you the insight into how much work it's probably going to take, right? Finding those people, creating it, and executing on it. The bigger thing is really just going to be, well, how do you go about doing that, right? Because you could find 100 people and talk to them and be like, hey, I talked to 100 people. Did you talk to the right 100 people?
I
So
was just about to ask 100 people of what, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. So the biggest thing is just going to be the difference between the 6, 7, 8, and 9 figure business owners, entrepreneurs, etc., right? Are the decisions they make. So if you go talk to 100 people that are just 100 people, well, then you kind of got mediocre results, right? But if you got really silly specific, where it's like, hey, when we look at our business, we see that we have 3 different types of customers, and this one seems to be more profitable. Great. We're going to go talk to 100 of these types of people, right? Whether they're customers or not, right? So 6 figure types of mindset is like the decisions they make, right? 7 figures are going to be the rate of which you make those decisions, right? So when do you kind of have those 100 conversations? Do you have those 100 conversations over the span of 19 years? Or is it 19 days, right? Now, certainly building systems and processes around that to help that to be scalable is, part of it. But again, sometimes the decisions you make don't actually need more time. They just need more conviction, right? Now, when you get to like an 8 figure type mindset, that is being consistent with the decisions that you made and having that consistency compound over time. Now, from a 9 figure and I mean, in some ways, 10 figure as well, it's really more of the types of individuals that you hire and promote and grow that's really going to take you to that next level. So, regardless if the problem is or the opportunity is just like known, right? And it's about just, hey, talking to more customers and people, right? But again, the decisions, the rate, and the consistency, as well as the people you have within that process, those two things combined are radically going to change like everything, not just about you, but how you show up, what you do, and how you do it. And that's going to happen, through and through. The person who's like, hey, we had just had a great meeting. I love it. I'm going to send you this thing by end of day and it just gets done, right? Like I can rely on that moves forward. There's a number of like nuances here. But again, if I was just to share like one big thing, and I know there's like two small pieces to that, but both of those things combined, like just need to be reiterated again and again and again because you're going to have battles of the mind and changes. But again, just thinking of those things of like, this is a tough decision. Yeah, it is a tough decision. Also, not making the decision is probably tough too, right?
right.
So commit to it
And
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 then
just
figure
for
out how to.
clarity, when you say talk to 100 people in this
Mhm.
context, what context are we talking about? Because earlier you opened with saying most people, when they get to like, certain levels of growth in their business,
Yeah,
people are going to ask them to invest in XYZ thing, right? So
sure.
you're saying talk to 100 people in this case for what purpose? Like, because you're not saying talk to 100 prospects for your own business. Are you talking about talking to 100 people that are maybe your peers, your colleagues about the opportunity in front of you? Like, I just want to make sure that we.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great clarification question because yes is the answer. So meaning that ultimately any problem or any opportunity, 100 people, and really why you set this like lofty goal of 100 is simply because you're probably going to learn a lot of things at like 20 or 30 or what have you, right? You may not actually need to talk to 100, maybe you do. My point is simply to say that like if you're looking for a job, how do you find a job? Talk to 100 people. If you're looking for creating a new business, 100 people, right? If you're looking for, advice in some sort of area, yeah, 100 people is going to be a little drastic in some of these types of categories. But the bigger thing is more that like your threshold in terms of the types of people that you're going to talk to and the amount of people is just going to be different than everyone else, right? Imagine you were getting your house painted and you talked to one person and then you went with that one person. You should always get at least three different quotes from people. Like, so my point is just to say your threshold and your capacity needs to just be bigger if you're aiming for bigger, greater things. And they're just simple things, like you mentioned, it's just repetition. But
Right.
ultimately, if you're going into it and you're saying, hey, it's only going to be this, you're going to quit too soon. It's like the runner who was told, hey, you need to run for 19 minutes, right? They were constantly looking, to see when they were done.
I,
Versus you
yeah.
tell the runner
No,
of like, hey, just go run. They don't have an end date, right? They're just
I
going to do
think
what's required.
like what you're getting at in terms of like the bigger picture is like the importance of making sure you have the right information. Like
Yeah.
that's really like the key. Because
Yeah.
obviously if you go to paint your house, it's like, well, how severely do you need the house to be painted? Because talking to
Yeah.
100 people might set you back from your timeline. But the idea
Agreed.
here is like just, the more you learn, right, the more you earn. So
Hmm.
as opposed to just running amok and because in entrepreneurship we know of the concept of ready, fire, and aim, which is
Yep.
great, right, for taking actions because that's how business gets done is through action.
Sure.
But it's like acting with prudence, acting with, the right knowledge and information on your side so you can minimize losses and
Yep.
unnecessary, right?
Yeah, because you're gonna see, if you're picking the wrong people and you're having 8 conversations with them and you're like, this is going nowhere, I hate this, this isn't valuable, well, then you're gonna know to stop talking to those types of people and you're gonna start talking to other types of people.
Mhm.
And so through that process of just knowing that it's gonna probably take longer than you think and having that sort of mindset, again, it's just going to radically set you different. It's basically almost approaching every day of like, hey, I might need to run a marathon today. That's a very different mindset than like, yeah, I could probably walk 2,000 steps today, right? It's 10x is easier than 2x in summation, right? Which is, also a great book. But like our human mind like wants to limit and know things, but again, the more that we can expand and just be like, oh, it's going to take 100, like that just seems so much. It's like, well, it might only take three, but ultimately, if we're focused on producing the best, well, then we just need to continue, doing those reps
Yeah.
because through repetition, then we'll find out what's going to happen. So it's really just that mindset expectation thing and executing on it. Again, you may not need to do an actual 100, because you may know everything in 20 people, 40 people, but really like going through that process and having a bigger capacity is again just going to completely separate you instead of just this hope, right? And hope transcends, all things. Ultimately, if you don't have the capacity to constantly chip away, like that brick wall isn't going to get built, right?
Well, there's something to said, I think, in terms of the difference between hope and faith, right? Hope
Yeah,
is not a
absolutely.
strategy. Faith is something that you can utilize to lean in on, but you cannot lean in and utilize hope, right? It's just
Yeah.
that's
Now you need hope though. There's an interesting study about different people in like in prison camps and whatnot, and those that did not have hope didn't last, and those that had set goals where it's like, oh, we're gonna get out by September. Those were the ones who typically didn't make it because they lost hope. So you need hope to like continue, but faith is what propels you, type thing
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it, man. Hey, listen, it's been great. Thank you so much for your time
Yeah.
over here from Nashville. For those listening, what is their best way to get a hold of you, right? If they want to learn more from you,
Yeah.
your journey, right? If they want to talk about anything Shark Tank related to Kevin,
Yeah.
right? What's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, I would say shoot me a connection request on LinkedIn. So Paul H. Graham, right, in Nashville is probably the best. Just, say, hey, how you found me or that you want to, connect. I also have my website, which is the Investor's Guide to Joy, and, kind of a YouTube on that as well. But I like to hear from people directly as opposed to tangentially, especially in the age of AI and social media. It's a lot cooler to be like, hey, I listened to your show. I thought, this was great, have a great day. Like amazing. Like we get to actually have a connection and communication versus, you just go onto the website, you click a bunch of buttons. Like I have no idea who you are and, you don't get to interact with me either. So that's what I would recommend. LinkedIn is the best. Paul H. Graham. Shoot me a note, personalized note with it. Otherwise, I'm not going to accept that stuff. So
Yeah, and just make sure you mention Lightspeed Investing Podcast, and Paul would know.
yeah, there you go. Then I'll say confirmed. But yeah, I mean, I'm really just, I like helping people and connecting people. So by all means, if there's something that people are looking to do or know, I might know someone or I might just be the person to encourage you, right? Like we could all use more encouragement on days that we know things or days that we have no idea what to do, right?
How long have you been an entrepreneur for, Paul?
Dude, I tried to apply for a patent when I was 8 years old. They told me it was 40 grand. And I said, okay. And I turned to my mom and I said, hey, mom, I need 40 grand. And she said, this has been a great learning experience. And I said, yeah, learning that we need $40,000 to apply for this patent. And then we left. So I've always been just like scrappy,
What was
kind
the
of
patent
kid.
for? A lemonade stand?
No, no, it was one of the AT&T ended up doing, or not AT&T, the ADT, right? The home service
Oh,
company.
the
So
security.
when you have your car keys and you click it, right? Opens and locks. The thought was to have that for your house.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
ADT had that for a little bit. Well, then turns out people found out like, oh, you live here, and they just unlock your house and you're good to go. So there are some good ideas. There are some good ideas that get produced, and there are some good ideas that get produced that no longer exist. So you win some, you lose some, but ultimately, just yeah. Again, I like being curious and solving problems. So.
So you had your first patent idea when you were 8, and it's been what, at least
Oh,
3?
dude, it's probably I probably had it before 8, but that's just at least when like some kids were like calling pizza restaurants and they're like when you see the TV, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I want to call the 1-800 invent like
Yeah.
hotline or whatever. So
So would you
very
say for
fortunate.
you, is it safe to say it's been three decades or 4 decades in the making for you now at this
I mean,
point?
it's been 3. So I mean, like physically, I'm 31. I tend to run with people that are in their early 40s or even late 40s, right? Either for how I think or who I know or etc. So I don't know. I feel like I'm always a decade more than where I'm at.
That's
Um,
good. That's great.
so yeah,
Yeah.
it's always fun.
I can say that I strive for that mentally, but physically,
Yeah, no, we're good. Yeah, we're
no,
good where we're at. Yeah, yeah.
I always like to say I get a little 10% discount from up top. So physically, I'm still like 20, 22.
Yeah, there you go.
You know what
There
I
you
mean?
go.
Yeah. So, all right, man. Good deal. Listen, it's been great having you. I wish you the best, and I will see you next time, okay?
Cool. Sounds good, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks. Take care.